Okay, everybody, thanks for listening today. Really excited today to be talking to Aaron Siegel. Aaron's down in Charleston, South Carolina, and he owns Fiery Ron's Home Team Barbecue. 2 locations, right, Aaron?
That's right, yeah. 2 locations, Sullivan's Island and West Ashley.
Sullivan's Island and West Ashley. So, well, man, hey, thanks a lot for taking the time. Aaron's actually driving from one of his locations to the next right now, so we get to wrap with him while he's on hanging out at the drawbridge, right?
Yeah, trading some chicken wings from store to store. The life
there you go, man. Which is exactly what we're here to talk about. So this is good stuff, man. So, so I read up a little bit. Fill in some gaps here, but you were from Atlanta, and I know you went to the Culinary Institute of America, and I've been in the restaurant business for a while now. And then is Fiery Ron's, is it the first restaurant that you've owned, or have you owned other ones prior to that?
No. We started West Ashley in 2006. Raised some money with family and friends, and it took me about a year to set it up. Actually, it took a little bit longer than that. I was kind of looking for spots under the radar, and when I was working my other job, and so we opened up in 2006, and that's my first run at owning a restaurant. So it's been trial by fire for about almost 9 years now.
That's awesome, man. And you did. So you did. Is it that location that you first opened? Was that counter service, and then you opened a full service? Is that right? Or
yes. So it was funny. When I got done with the Culinary Institute, I went out to Aspen. I was cooking out there for 4 years, did a lot of my grunt work out there, and I had a job during the day. I mean, everybody's working hourly in the food and beverage industry. Usually, you got to have another job, and that other job might be where you make a little bit more money. So I worked at this burrito place in Aspen, which is still there to this day, called the Big Wrap, and it was a quick service place, all fresh ingredients, making salads in a stainless steel bowl, and making great burritos and tacos, and I kind of always had that concept in my mind to step away from the high end business, and I always had a great interest in barbecue, so I kind of combined those 2 ideas, and they were always in the back of my head. And it was funny, I got tired of the division between front of the house and back of the house, and I really wanted to marry it, and that's kind of why I did counter service, and I wanted less people handling the food, and I wanted to create a concept that was just sort of simpler, and I was also looking at my quality of life for the next 20 years, and being in a high-end restaurant and having to worry about how every chive slice is cut, and who's putting the plates on the table, whether they're putting the plates down correctly facing you, and not. So I had all these things in my mind that I kind of wanted to back away from while keeping the same fundamentals and standards on food, but creating a quick service atmosphere. So that's how we ended up with West Ashley's counter service, and then we had a bar as well attached to it. So it was kind of, and it's still that way to this day. And then when we opened up Sullivan's Island, I mean, we just needed it. There was more need for the table service, so I turned back over to the dark side of table service.
Well, what do you mean by the division between front of the house and back? I mean, I know what you mean, generally speaking, but do you feel like it's they're just almost 2 separate teams operating, trying to do this? I mean, what were the issues that you saw?
No, I think it's kind of like brother and sister.
Yeah.
You got to draw a line down the middle of the car. One person thinks that they're getting more than the other. One person thinks they're getting less. And I mean, the thing is with front of the house and back of the house, which is well noted, is front of the house people make more money. They just do.
Yeah.
And it's the typical atmosphere, and so there's always this, kind of I work harder than you, and and that sort of thing. And so you're always trying to massage that, and you do want them to work together. But the fact is that there are 2 different sub teams working under a parent team, and you're trying to get these guys to get along and work together and talk to each other. Usually they don't hang out together as much. It's interesting. So, but I mean, that's different in every restaurant. It just depends on how you approach it, whether you have, folks that are at the helm that are always trying to marry those 2 guys, or they're always they're always pushing against each other, and but that, that's the restaurant industry. I mean, there's one clear-cut division, and that's front of the house, back of the house. That's Republican and Democrat. Not necessarily associating not necessarily associating either one with either party, but it's a two-party system. Let's put it that way. Two-party system under one flag.
I got you, man. I got you. Well, then, so that's been something that's been important to you. I mean, I know it's not sort of black and white or clear cut, but what are some of the general things you've tried to do to, kind of keep those two sides working together?
I think the biggest thing is open lines of communication. I mean, you just gotta, everybody needs to know what everybody's up against, and and I mean that falls over into every job and every different business. So, I mean, you got to consider what the person you're working with is up against, or you won't be able to understand or communicate with them because you're just going to have this wall you've already put up, and so you want to keep those walls, kind of tear those walls down and make sure that everybody's on the same page, and if there is any animosity, that you clear it up and you make sure that people understand. And then there's certain people you just can't reach, and they'll they're gonna be sore and bitter and about whatever they're doing. But the heart of the restaurant is a good core group that all works together and understands what each other's up against when you're going into a busy weekend, and looks at what they do and how hard they're working and respects each other. So that's really what it is. It's really just about respect. If you got people respecting each other in the work environment, then you're going to have a much better work environment.
Gotcha, man. Gotcha. Now, you you mentioned kind of like when you started thinking about career longevity and well-being and everything, and not really some of the things that go along with sort of high-end restaurants. It seems like, I mean, I might be wrong, I don't know, man, but it seems like a lot of the folks now, I mean, even on this podcast recently, I've interviewed several folks that went to the Culinary Institute of America, clearly are just, learning incredible culinary skills, but they're doing concepts that are more
casual, more
more laid back type places, but then just still really great food. Do you think culturally are we kind of shifting more in that direction? I mean, I find myself and my family
I think it's
places more.
It's a great middle ground. I mean, it's a great middle ground for not only the customer, but for the person that's doing it. I mean, lots of chefs. I mean, the thing was, we're limited by what we can do now in our places. We try to be as creative as possible and things like that. But, for a long time, we had to get people's trust. And but you want to cook, like, when you're not working at night doing dinner, and you're doing barbecue lunch, barbecue catering, and things like that. When you get your free time, all you think about is doing the dinner service or doing that sort of food. So I think you don't want to get cornered, and I think sometimes the casual aspect gives you a little bit more room. It's chance these days on with these high-end restaurants, because number one, there's so many of them, and there's so many talented people out there. I mean, there's so many talented people that read way more than I do now. It's they immerse themselves way more than I do, way more than I have the time to. And so, at some point, it's like you're an athlete in the NBA, and what's your prime? Well, your prime is the more time you have to immerse yourself in what you're doing. And so from a family standpoint, I think people start to look at what they can, and you still pay just as much attention. It's just something that might be a little easier to execute, and also something that you have fun with. I mean, you see all these high-end chefs eating, opening meat and threes, or a fried chicken place, or a little taco stand. I mean, look at Sean Brock, in Monero. I mean, he's got a passion for it. He loves it. It's simple, and it might not be as simple as you think, but it's just a simpler concept. And there's, sounds funny, but there's not necessarily more room for error. There's just not as much error that can be had. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
you know
no,
what
I know exactly. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
You streamline things, and you're not changing things up every single day, and you're changing up fringe items, and so I think it's fun, and I mean, there's a niche for it. I mean, everybody wants, nobody wants the generic crap anymore. It's you get brand. No, nothing on against TGI Fridays or something like that, but that's what all these other places are now. These middle of the road places that are opening, that people they're independent openings. They're being opened by people that are really interested in food, and not just your baby back ribs or whatever. So
yeah, that's right.
So I think it is. That I think that's the reason behind it. I think that people, good people who cook food want to cook. They want to cook all kinds of food, so they get an idea and they want to go through it. And it's funny when we started. The Peninsula Grill down here. Have you ever heard of the Peninsula Grill in the plant?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. Bob Carter is one of the renowned chefs in Charleston that's really got things started, along with Donald Barrickman and Bob Wagner and some other folks, and Frank Lee, and just a really respected elder chef. And he used to come in the middle of the afternoon in his whites, and hat and everything, and I'd see him over there sitting by himself eating barbecue. I'd go over there and say hello to him. What are you doing, Bobby? Man, I'm just taking a break. And he'd be like, I want to do this someday. I want to open up a casual concept. And I think when you're in one place, you kind of want to do something else, or you expand your experience. And he went and did that. Now he's back in the high end again. He just opened up. So you never know. It's just I think it's just like anything else. When you have the ability to kind of shift gears, and people will let you do it and give you an opportunity to do it, then you tend to try it out. So,
sure, man. And folks, and by the way, for those of you listening, I mean, Aaron's created something really special down in Charleston. I mean, Aaron, I hear word of mouth. I mean, I'm in Charlotte, and I've heard a lot about Fiery Runs. And then you guys, I even noticed you've gotten some really good national PR. You guys were in Esquire, Food Network. I think I saw USA Today said y'all had the 4th best ribs in the country. What is there? Is that how has that happened? I mean, I know you make great food and you have a great place, but I mean, if you.
Well, it's funny when you say the 4th best ribs in the country, because it's so subjective, and it's just, and a lot of
totally,
I think you put yourself in a position. I mean, we worked really hard, and we're always working on our food, and we're still changing things these days, methods, techniques. I think I guess you just put yourself in a position to be, I mean, the national accolades are great. A lot of them are social media driven. So if you have, we have a lot of followers, I guess, on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. I mean, we're pretty into Instagram just because it's fun, motivates us. We can check out what other people are doing, and it's just a lot of fun. I think it creates a lot of camaraderie within the business. And so I think you just kind of put yourself in a position to, because, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say we've got the 4th best ribs in the country. Our ribs are good, but, it's just kind of, it's so subjective. You see all these lists. But, you got to be around, I guess, for people to look at you that way, and we're certainly flattered by it, and it makes us feel good and all. But it's really about what we put out every day, and we're the only ones that know what the quality is on that, because we have our own standards. But, man, it's great. I mean, you can't. I think we just put ourselves out there. We've got a good relationship with our customers here in Charleston. I mean, it's fun for us, it's fun for them. So I think they probably speak highly of us as we speak highly of them. We love our peeps and they love us. So it's a cool thing.
I talked to I was talking to another owner. It's got a really, really good concept, popular concept up in New York, and one of the things he was telling me, they've been at it for 6 or 7 years or whatever, is they've gotten a lot of PR too. But one thing he said is that he's kind of retrenched recently and focused a lot on operations, because you can get people in. It's one thing to get people in, but then to provide that great. You can only get so many people in once, and then but you've got to provide this great food and great experience to keep them coming back. You guys focus a lot on just really kind of nailing down? I know you're always making tweaks and changes, but you said you keep changing the food, but the food, the service, I mean, is it something you spend a lot of energy on, just trying to really nail that formula for getting people to want to come back, on a recurring basis and just be, repeat regular customers?
Yeah, I mean, man, there's so many aspects to the food and beverage industry and restaurants and why people come back, what makes them feel comfortable, the food and the service, and I mean, it's everything, but there's something that usually brings people back, and it can be multiple things. Man, we're always just, I mean, like I said, I mean, your focus can go from one place to another so quickly, and you're constantly trying to follow up with people and try to get them to have the same drive that you do, and trying to get them to treat every situation the way it should be treated. And it's never, but the situations and just as they are in other jobs too. But in restaurants, lots of situations are just not very black and white. You're dealing with adversity all the time. It's kind of like working on Wall Street or something. I mean, it's just like, sometimes it's just war and you don't know what's going on, and so you got to prepare people for it, and just what you do is the best thing to do is, like, lots of times when something goes wrong. I remember earlier in my career I used to get so pissed. I just get, I still do, but I get in a different way. You use incidents as training points, because they're much more useful that way. You can't go back and change anything, but you can change. You can't give somebody insight on how to handle it next time. On a personal level with a customer or something like that, and then from a functional level, just what to do. You get them thinking a different way, and then the next time it happens, next time it has the opportunity to happen, something's always bound to happen. It's also it's almost always based on reaction and how we deal with things.
Right.
So, and I think that's what I mean a little bit by, I think that's the stress of it. I mean, you're dealing with people's personalities and trying to make people happy, and so you're always following up on those sort of things and just talking. I'm sure my people are sick of hearing me talk. I know for sure that some of my business partners are sick of hearing me talk, but you just do it. You keep on talking, and eventually it creates awareness, and then at the very least, somebody's aware of something, they're going to think about it differently. Just that little simple part, even if they don't care. But you get a lot of people in the restaurant industry that are just, it's a stopping point. They're just spinning their wheels, creating some cash flow while they're waiting to do something else. Generally a transient community, and so what you want to do is get everybody while they're there to take it as seriously as possible. If they're not, if it's not just like, and that's what you teach people. Say, look, just, you might look up one day, you've been here for 2 years and you put yourself in a position to be a manager just because you kept your nose down.
Yeah.
So, so just keeping on talking to folks. Let them know.
Yeah, man. I mean, and then you're it's just it never ends, and it's kind of an ongoing conversation and communication. I like how you kind of really, as we kind of grow and mature, I found myself like that in business or with my kids or whatever. Too, man, it's like the stuff that, like, at one point you kind of be like, what the hell? You kind of go, okay, that happened. How do we use this to, learn from it and teach them so they know that in the next time, that doesn't happen again. It happens a different way and it's handled differently or whatever. Now, do you guys have at least I guess out there in Sullivan's Island, you have, if I'm correct, you have bands pretty frequently, blues and bluegrass and rock and stuff like that. Is that part of what you're doing?
Yeah, Americana. Yeah, we were kind of we the first place was we kind of tried to model it a little bit around the Mississippi Juke Joint, and we've always been a big supporter of the blues. We have the Low Country Blues Club. It's actually just had their 7th anniversary of meeting every Wednesday night at the West Ashley location. They do an open jam every Wednesday night, and we've always done an oyster roast every year, which was in sync with this Charleston's Blues Festival. And then we've been a big supporter of just Americana, bluegrass, rock and roll, and we do less of the music over at we have 2 open jams a week over at our West Ashley location, which are cool. The Blues Club on one, and the other one's on Mondays, and it's run by one of our bar managers, who's a big musician in town, Reed Stone, and then Danielle Howe right now who's a well-known local musician. So we kind of modeled it after some of those Nashville open mics, when you're just getting a lot of singer-songwriters in and trying to cultivate that. And then the other store is it's a better location for folks to come see live music. Set up a little bit better, and we usually do live music on Friday and Saturday nights out there, except during football season. We won't do Saturday nights, we'll just do Friday nights. But live music has definitely been a big part of our concept, and we're all big music fans, and so sometimes music's that's a tough industry. You can't really pin that stuff down. It's like I always make the metaphor. It's like a band can be a bad band is like rotten food. It's like but your band is rotten. Right when there's no going back. You get a $500 band in, you pay a sound guy $150, and you get a band in and nobody shows up. Well, there it goes. Your food's rotten. You got to throw it out. But at least sometimes we felt over the years I've sat in a room and I've listened to a band after working for 15 hours, doing a catering gig and working in a restaurant, and it's me and the guys from the catering gig and 10 other people, and we're listening to some badass band, and we're like, sometimes it's just kind of our little private party. I remember that from the old days, but it doesn't happen as much anymore. We've grown in that area, just kind of being selective about what we get and modifying it some over the years. So, but it's definitely a big part.
You're okay. I will confess. I mean, most people that are listening probably, at least if they're not from the Southeast, they may not. Well, I shouldn't say that. A lot of people may not have heard of Widespread Panic. I'm a big Widespread Panic fan. I did see that the bassist for Widespread had a Fiery Ron show, and some picture I saw recently. Can't remember where, but do you know those guys?
Yeah, I mean, I went to University of Georgia in the early '90s, so
okay.
I was around when those guys were, around a lot more. They played at Georgia Theater, 5-10 times a year or something like that, and still are touring all over the country. But I had friends. I wouldn't say I was friends with them. I knew them in passing. My girlfriend did an internship for Capricorn Records when Widespread was with them, and over one summer, and I definitely saw them tons of times and whatnot. So and then we actually had them in they were on tour. They were playing Charleston. I think it was in 2009 or 10, and we had them over to our West Ashley location for Thanksgiving dinner. We just closed down the restaurant and did Thanksgiving dinner for them and their crew and stuff like that. So, we every time they come to town, we usually cater for them. That's where Big Dave got his shirt and whatever. So.
Well, I mean, that's good. Yeah. That's good. That's what I thought. I was like, well, that's some good PR.
Right. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this now. So I'm from Charlotte, and so folks listening, barbecue is a big thing in the Carolinas and the Southeast, obviously. In North Carolina, Charlotte's kind of like somewhere in the middle. It's more Western, but we kind of have Western North Carolina does. And I'm talking to folks really specifically about pulled pork barbecue here, but, we would do sort of like a tomato-based sauce. Eastern North Carolina is more vinegar-based. I gravitate towards that. My wife's from Lexington, South Carolina, where I had never heard of mustard-based barbecue until I met her, and that's what she grew up on. So what's your preference, man? What do you got? How do you guys make it?
So, you know what? We pretty much, well, first of all, you can get kind of categorized a little bit, too, about what part of the pig you cook or what, whether you cook beef or whatnot. But, with our pork and our ribs, we dry rub it all. And then, our pork is pulled. and it's pulled with a little bit of salt and pepper and just a tiny bit of cider vinegar. So it's fairly it's presented in a fairly neutral way, and then we do a red sauce, which is basically kind of a middle North Carolina, maybe western North Carolina sauce. It's tomato and vinegar based, but it's it's fairly thin. It's not thick. It's not very sweet. And then we do a sweet version of that and a hot version of that. Sweet version of that kind of more, sort of starting to lean towards a Memphis or Kansas City sauce. It's just because it's thicker and a little bit sweeter, but still maintains the same characteristics of our red sauce. And then we do a hot version of that, which is just spicier. And then when we opened, we just had the red, and then about 2 weeks in, we'd had enough ridicule in the restaurant from customers being in Charleston, South Carolina, for a mustard-based sauce that we went ahead and made a mustard-based sauce. But we made it kind of along, kind of within our parameters. It kind of gave it the same characteristics as the red sauce. Just built it with 3 types of mustards. It's not like super sweet, and sometimes you'll have some of that. Mustard barbecue, and it's almost like honey mustard. It's really sweet, super thick. And then we opened. We did Alabama white sauce, which I don't think too many people around here did, which is a mayonnaise-based barbecue sauce, and that has completely taken off because of our smoked chicken wings. That's our dipping sauce for our smoked chicken wings. We don't do blue cheese or ranch. We do Alabama white sauce, and people just they love it. So so we just we put the sauces on the table and let you do what you want.
I love it, man.
It's our job. It's our job to cook the meat, and it's y'all's. Everybody else, we don't want to put anything on there that people don't want. So
that's awesome. So folks, if you're listening, you can see how seriously we take this here. I mean, it's 11:35 right now. My mouth is watering, and I need to go find somewhere to get some good barbecue for lunch. Unfortunately, I don't have anything nearly as good as what you provide right nearby.
Oh yeah, you can shoot. I got my buddy as Max. Max is a cool.
Yeah, I know Max. I'm in South Charlotte. I'm like solid, even with no traffic, I'm a good half hour from Max. But Max is awesome. Yeah. So you know those guys?
I know. I went to college with. They've got a few partners. I went to college with one of the guys, but he's been with them since they opened their first one. I think they have 4 or 5 places now or something like that. But I mean, it's a quality operation up there.
Yeah, they do. I noticed they've grown, man, and that's actually that leads me to that question. Is that in your plans or?
We're actually just now about to get permitted for our location on the peninsula in downtown Charleston.
Great,
we actually bought the property back in January and doing the whole thing, most of it from scratch. Is 2,800 square foot building that's still there. We're building on to, but we're gutting it all out, building a parking lot and all that stuff, outdoor area. So we're hoping to have that open in the fall. So and then we'll see what happens after that. You never know. You might see us up there in Charlotte.
Man, you need to get up to Fort Mill. It's going crazy. Well, then, so do you? So 2006 was the first one, and then when did your second one open?
Second one opened in 2009. So it's been it'll be 6.5 years in between the second and the third one, and I think there's a good reason for that. I think it was really important for us to try to nail down what we were doing and nail down our management and really create a team to put us in position to do. Because I'm kind of the belief that your third one, obviously the first one's probably the most important. If they don't like the first one, then they're not going to like the second one. But once you get that second one open, the first one, it's kind of people like it, and you have the chance to do another one, and of course you're nervous about it. But the third one, I think, is really kind of the one like, all right, can we really do this? Can we really do another one of these, and then can that work, and then can another one work? So it's it's definitely kind of I'm interested to go through the process of the third one. Everybody will be like, oh, you're great. You're gonna be fine. And you're like, I'll believe it when I see it.
There's a lot more to it, I know, man. I mean, it's smart that you waited that long. And folks, this is a wise way to do this, because there are a lot of folks that, and I'm sure you've seen it, Aaron, a lot, being in the business for a while. There are folks that, that may have a good thing, but they grow too fast, and that ultimately can lead to your demise if you don't really nail down the fundamentals and the foundation for what you're doing, which is what you spent the last 6 years doing with those two. Which is just, man, my hat's off. I mean, that's just a good long-term, smart way to look at the business.
Yeah, well, you just kind of, you got to be ready. And everybody's got a different formula. I mean, I didn't sit down and say, after we opened our second one up, I'm going to wait 6 years until I didn't even know if I'd do another one. It just kind of has to come to you. It's got to be natural, and you can push it along in different ways. But we're comfortable where we are right now with the staff that we have and the people we have working for us, that we can do a third one. And I think that's where you got to be. It's just you got to have a staff that is going to support you. Because if you don't have them, you're in deep crap. I can't. If I had $1 for everybody who came up to me and said, you must have a really good staff, and I said yes, I mean, I'd get open up another restaurant. I mean, it's just, we can't do anything without people, that are loyal and that want to try to execute what we want to execute as owners and operators.
Cannot be underscored and emphasized enough. No doubt about it. Well, listen, I know you were going from one to the other, so I'm going to let you roll here in a sec, but I do want to ask you one more question, because I'm always curious about this. Like, so you're now 9 years into this, well, a little longer because you're planning, but you opened your first one 9 years ago, and here you are. Looking back, if you could get a hold of yourself 9 years ago right now, what advice would you give yourself that you've learned along the way?
I would probably grab myself before that and go, because the thing about it is once you jump in, it just is what it is. And the hard thing is, like I said at the beginning, it's trial by fire. So if I could have had my perspective could have been a little bit different going into it, I'd thought a little bit more about the different ends of the business and how, like I talked about as well, like knowing what, really trying to sit down and understand what people do and what their jobs are and things like that. If I'd done some more of that when I was just a chef, I think I would have been better prepared to own a business, because it's every aspect of not only the restaurant job world, but also just any job world, which is management. I mean, when you're starting to manage and lead people, and you're out of your comfort zone. My comfort zone was making mashed potatoes, and all of a sudden you're dealing with numbers and lots more employee issues and massaging things. So I think it's the biggest thing is try to get as much experience as you can before you jump in. Because once you jump in, there's not as many. You have to dig deeper for resources to get information rather than it being part of your natural work experience. So that's the biggest thing. I'm sure I'd change some other things, but I mean, you're just in it, man. You don't know what to do. You just kind of learn and move on. I mean, there are some specific things that I would change, but I mean, who could do that? Somebody I hired or somebody I fired or whatever. But
you really need to know the business really well before. I mean, it seems like, I bet there's people that go and they sit in one of your restaurants and they look around and they go, how cool is this? Like, I want to do this too. This is something I want to do. And then, but that's not there are wonderful, cool.
It's called romanticizing the restaurant business.
Yeah. And the reality is that there is some there is that piece of it, but it's probably not nearly as big of a piece as most people would assume, because you're like you said, a day in the life of the operator. Your day probably changes. Things happen all the time that you're not, don't know are going to happen, and it's something you really. I think you got to love it, don't you? I mean, if you don't really love it, it would be hard to make it in your business.
Yeah, I mean, yes, it's probably one that you do need to love more because the rewards aren't so great. I mean, there's obviously other jobs out there that you can not love as much, but find some solace in it because whatever the relationships you have or the money you make. But a restaurant, I mean, you get burned.
Yeah.
Any job you go to and you come home with cuts and burns and aches and pains. I mean, you gotta want to do it. So, but that's what's fun about it too. It's kind of like I'm a big sports fan and whatnot. It's kind of like I mean, I've always thought of it as kind of like a game. I mean, you come in on Saturday at noon to get ready for your game that starts at 5 o'clock, and it's a 6-hour game with a bunch of preparation, and when you're done, it's a sense of satisfaction. You just won the game because you got out all the food and everybody enjoyed it. So
there you go, man. Well, Listen, Aaron, it's really kind of you to take the time to do this with as much as you do have going on, and good luck with Location 3. And you all are all over my radar to get down there and hang out with y'all sometime, hopefully this summer or fall when I can break away.
Well, just let us know when you're heading down. Be glad
I will, man. Hey, thanks a lot, Aaron. Take care, bud.
All right, have a great weekend. See you.
All right, you too.